Shuk, thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
Why is important today to create innovation in companies?
Well, I think innovation is always important, and nowadays it's a real buzzword. Everyone talking about innovation, and certainly it's needed. It always is. I think it's also important to realize that to think about what innovation really is. We tend to think about the big eureka moment, the big hit product that takes the world by storm, and almost always that hit product or the big idea is actually the culmination of a lot of small ideas, a lot of small innovations, and that's important when we think about how to go about the process of innovation. A lot of times we think it's only the genius. Everyone has this image in mind of Steve Jobs, the great innovator. But you know, Steve Jobs even didn't really innovate any one single thing. He integrated a lot of small innovations to make something that was very important. So innovation has many dimensions. And when we think of it in a lean context, we always begin in lean thinking with value, and we embody value in a product. And so we see products that are innovated, whether it's the iPhone or things like that all the time. But really, innovation needs to occur and does occur every day in all dimensions of work. And we think in terms of lean change and transforming organizations as a matter of innovation on 5 dimensions. So with anything, with any new product or any type of work, we begin with thinking about the purpose, the mission, or what kind of problem we're trying to solve. Sometimes it's a problem for a customer. Sometimes it's a problem in the process itself. But we always begin there. And having defined a certain problem, then we think about what's the work to be done to be able to solve that, to make progress on that, to achieve our purpose. Having defined the work that's required, what needs to be done to solve that problem, then we think about, do we have the capabilities? What capabilities are necessary to solve this problem? And then if we have them, how can we develop them further? If we don't have them, how can we acquire or develop them? Then, and it's a 4th level of innovation, the 4th dimension that requires innovation then, is how we manage the management system that we use to manage work, to manage companies, and the type of leadership, the style of leadership that is required as well. And then this kind of 5th dimension that requires innovation has to do with our basic thinking itself. How do we think human beings work? How do we think the world works? What do we think companies are all about? What are companies for? What's the purpose of an economic firm? So our basic underlying thinking comes into question as well. And really all those dimensions require innovation. Not only the final wonderful product that we see at the end, that everyone then becomes very excited about. So in that sense, innovation is required today, as it always is. But our opportunity today is to think beyond just the final product, but to think about all the process, all the work that goes into innovating up to the point that we see that great product.
Okay, and give us more details about how can a company can use the system lean, to create innovation.
So lean is all about thinking about a couple of different things. How the technical dimensions of any endeavor relate to the social dimensions. So we need technology. Technology changes, it changes our lives. But there's also always a social dimension. And lean change, or lean thinking when it comes to work, it encompasses both of those. And it's only by thinking of both of those that we can actually bring about effective change. So lean begins with the customer, asking what kind of value is needed. And from there, we think about the technology, we think about the social dimensions. And if we do that, any company then can use lean thinking to bring about great innovation, dramatic innovation, along with day-to-day improvements that bring about that dramatic innovation that we see.
And you said in your speech that it's important to allow the people to do wrong things, to fail. Why is it important that?
So I think bringing about change in an organization, or simply to have an effective organization, means that people need to have ownership of their work. They need to feel like it's theirs. So they're not just being told to do something and they do it because they absolutely have to. If they can take ownership, then they'll give that extra bit of effort, that discretionary effort that can really make the difference between a great company and just an average company. In order for that to happen, we have to think about what is it that really engages people, but also what causes them sometimes not to get engaged in their work. And a fear of failure is probably the biggest illness, the most underlying difficult illness that an organization can have. When people fear failure, then what they'll do is they'll hide problems, they'll hide mistakes, and they'll hide these things that we want to actually make better. We have to change the idea of mistakes being something to hide into the fact that we saw the mistake, we caught it, being something to celebrate, because that's where the learning occurs. Great inventors know this. They know that by failing, they learn every time they fail. So we have to find ways to assist employees in any company to succeed as they do their work, but also to recognize that when something gets in the way so that they couldn't be successful, to stop and say something happened. Something got in the way from me being successful and doing my job right now. So that means giving people permission to fail. It doesn't mean we want people to fail. We want them to succeed. But success becomes a matter then of learning every time we do our job, whether in any given circumstance that doing the job was successful or there was failure involved. So this attitude towards failure is one that's important for us to change in any organization.
Mr. Schuke, finally, what do you think about Lean Summit Brazil, a place where different companies meet and talk about Lean?
So we're part of a Lean Global Network, and we have 17 countries around the world that have Lean Institutes. And we all do summits, Lean Summits, every year. This year, this will be my 6th Lean Summit. And there's tremendous excitement that occurs every time you have so many people get together. In this case, here in Sao Paulo, we have 1,000 people. So there are people who are learning, who are just beginning their journey. There are people who've been on their journey for decades. So the opportunity to share learning, to share excitement, is something that can't be replicated just from a book or even from just doing your work day after day. The real learning comes from doing work. We learn through doing. However, to be able to step aside, step back from our work, to get away, and be able to interact with others who are in very different situations, but through dialogue we find out that the problems we face are the same. I may be working in a hospital or a factory or an office, and the work seems so different, and it is, but at the end of the day, the problems we face, the challenges we face are remarkably the same. And those sorts of insights can only come about when we interact and have these conversations with each other. So doing this, I think, every year or two is an important thing. And I think the excitement that I see here in Brazil with 1,000 people exceeds that anywhere else in the world. So it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.